Hello everyone, really great to see you. I hope the year has started off really well for you. And geez, it seems like Christmas was like last year, right? So I hope you had the chance to have a good break. Certainly for me, the year is after the break has really taken off really quickly. And so before we get started, before we get into talking about making it make sense, I'd like to know how you're feeling about the year ahead. And we'll do it this way. I'll ask you just to, instead of typing in the chat, we'll get a lot of chance to type in the chat, but use the emoji reactions on Zoom to just share how you're feeling. So write down an emoji or choose an emoji about how you're feeling at the moment. Let's see what people come up with. How are you feeling, everyone? Okay, good. And yeah, good. I think there's lots of positives here. And Marie, I hope you're laughing. That's a laugh. Good. Lots of positives. Great. And I also hope you had a good break. So so let's talk about this skill of sense making. And as we go through this hour that we've got together, please feel free to share your emoji reactions as we go, because it'll help the room know how you're feeling as well. So for us, why did this picture come up here? So Nikki and I got to go and see the final of the Big Bash where the Scorchers won, and it was fantastic evening. It's actually not one of the best photos of Nikki, and I think she wouldn't allow me to use this except for the fact that we won. So as I said to her, Nick, there's this old saying that winners are grinners and sixers are whingers. So we were very happy to go to that game last weekend and see the end of that season with another trophy in the Western Australian Perth Scorchers cabinet. Okay, so I'm going to talk cricket for the rest of the hour. Let's not. So my rules of engagement for people who have been here before, you know this. There are a lot of new names I notice on the registration list for this session. But my 3 standard rules of engagement, I encourage you to take the time to think big in this session, and it's easy to do it that way and then walk it back when life gets in the way than the other way around. And that also means, if you can, do what you can to avoid other interruptions and distractions so that you can make the most of this, because especially for the people who are here live, I want you to be playful. So I'll give you time to ask questions. Some people have sent in questions in advance, which is great. I'll share some of them, and I'm going to ask you some questions as well. I've got a couple of little activities, interactive activities as we go through. If you're watching the recording, hello to you. You don't get to engage live, but you'll still get value from this. And the last thing is, seriously, I really want you to get some practical things that you can take away and put into action right now, not in the second quarter of the year or not in even 3 weeks' time, but almost like in 3 minutes after we finish, that you'll be able to do something with what you learn here. I'd like to know where everyone is. So let's do a little bit of a Where's Wally here. Just in the chat, if you can please just type where you are. I know most people looking at the registrations are in Australia and the region. So where are you? Just type in the chat and let's see where people are. Oh yeah, okay, we've actually got people from elsewhere as well. Good. Okay, thanks everyone. Great. Excellent. Okay, good. Thank you for that. Great to see from people from all around the country and even from the USA, which is nice to see. So let's talk about this skill of sense making. So sense making is, you can probably guess what it is understanding the world and making sense of it. So we've got a really complex, fast changing world with full of uncertainty and disruption. And how do we make sense of that so that we can work more effectively in this area, in whatever our role is? So let's talk about sense making today for you as an individual. And it doesn't matter what your role is. So I'm not talking about sense making for leaders or sense making for organizations. Let's make this very much about you. And sense making is kind of an academic process. That's how it started. We're not going to do the academic thing here. Let me distill it down into things that are really useful for us in a work environment. But I think you'll find that all of this is equally relevant in your personal lives as well. So I'm going to break it down into 3 areas. And this is broadly our agenda for today. So the first thing is scanning the world to understand what's happening outside ourselves, our own little world, so that then we can decide what shifts we're going to make, what do we need to learn, what do we need to change, what do we need to stop doing. The third part of that is to have the skills to be able to share that with other people. So some of the things you make might be, some of the changes you make, the shifts might be completely internal, but more often than not, you want to share it with your colleagues, your family, people that report to you, people that you report to in your organization, maybe even externally to customers and so on. So those are three things. So if you think about them as the scanning part is gathering intel from outside, the shift part is how you then gain insights from that to make change, and the share part is how you have influence in being able to communicate that, because most of the change is not something that we can do ourselves. We need to collaborate and involve other people in it. So those are three things that we're going to talk about today. I'm not going to do them in exactly that order. I've decided to put, so we'll go with the scan first, then share, and then come back and do shift. So I've decided to put shift last for two reasons. So one is because the shift one is about taking action, and that's a good thing, like just in designing this presentation. It's good if that comes last, because then after that, you'll be hanging up and taking action. And the other reason is when I ask people for what they'd like me to talk about, quite a few of them, actually there are more of them in the share and the scan than in the shift area. So I want to make sure that we have enough time to address some of the questions that came in beforehand. Sense making is one of the skills that we need for the future, and every year I write a report. This year it's all about future ready skills for 2026 and beyond. It's free. I'll give you a link to download it at the end, and you can download it, share it, and send the link to other people as well. Actually, let me not do that. I don't need to keep you in suspenders till the end. Let me give you the link now, just so you have it, and give it to you again at the end. But you don't need to download it now to be able to do this presentation. It's not a handout or anything like that, but have it for reference for later. Okay. Oh, thank you, Kaiser. Kaiser's already given me an endorsement for that. Good, and you must be one of the first people to download it, Kaiser, because it only published it in the last few weeks. So thank you. Thanks for that. Okay, let's talk about this first skill. And the first skill is the skill of scanning. So it's about understanding the world around us. I think people, in my opinion, people underestimate this skill. The skill of being able to gather intelligence from the world before you make decisions on what you're going to do with it. So I reckon there's so many places that you can find information. Let me group them into three areas, and in each of them, I'll ask you to share what you're doing, or what your sources of information are for each of these areas. Okay, so I think of this as the scanning funnel, and the three areas are these. In fact, what I'll do is I will get this ready to go so that when I go through them, so the first one is to go deeper. So what are you doing to go deeper in your area of expertise, or areas of expertise or experience? So for me, so I listen to lots of podcasts. Okay, and because podcasts, you can choose which ones you listen to. So I would type podcasts. I have started watching YouTube videos for learning because I find they're really useful. And I didn't used to be into videos, but I realize now there's some stuff that's visual that I need to watch. I still subscribe to lots of blogs and other sources which give me reading material. It might be that you go to conferences. It might be something else. So just in the chat, can you please type what you do? What are your sources for going deeper in your area of expertise? So I'm going to go podcast as one, and you can do multiple ones, but if you've got multiple ones, do them one at a time, and then they'll appear nicely in this little word cloud that we're creating as a team here. Lots of people going podcasts. What else? Yeah, podcasts, reading, that seem to be the two. LinkedIn, absolutely. And webinars. Thank you for people who are saying that. Good. Education events, conferences, great. Okay, while you're still typing, let me go to the second one. So the second one that I think we all need to be doing, in fact, this is the one that I think And we all know we need to go deeper, and we might even have programs that organizations provide for us. But the second one is to go wider. Just look outside your area of expertise. So what are you doing for that? For me, for example, the podcasts that I subscribe to, or the blogs that I subscribe to, are outside my areas of expertise because I want to get other information. So from different sources. So what are you doing? What are you doing? And so share that to go wider. How are you going wider? Okay. Are you engaging a futurist to help you understand what's coming up outside your sector or even outside your organization? So again, podcasts are coming up. That's good. LinkedIn, more broadly, mailing lists, engage with other. So I thought they said engage with other species, engage with other agencies. Saw that, thank you. Doom scrolling. Look, doom scrolling has its place, right? It really does. We'll talk a little bit about that later. Scans. Engaging with others, and I reckon one of the best things that you can do is engage with people in your team, in your organization. So this is one of the real values of having a diverse team. People have got different perspectives. So are you talking to other people, even really junior people, about their experiences and their perspectives on what you're doing at the moment and what you're facing? And I say even those, and I almost say especially those, because you get a very different perspective around it. Okay, and the third area, which I reckon we should all be doing, is looking at the future. Now, this is my day job, so I need to be doing this. So deeper, wider is also automatically further for me. But what are you doing to understand more about the future? And I would say to you that the more senior you are, the more of your salary is being paid for you to understand the future. Okay, the more senior you are, the higher percentage of your salary is being paid for that. Now, it doesn't mean you're doing that, because it's very easy to get caught up in operational things and day-to-day stuff and looking at the present, but you're being paid to look into the future. So what are you doing to boost your scanning into the future? Following me is a really good start, and it really is, right? What else? What else are you doing? I'll give you time to answer that. Forecasting. Yeah, actually doing forecasting, Jennifer says, yeah. Strategic planning, understanding different generations, absolutely. Looking at research and trends. Okay, so my mission for you, if you choose to accept it, is to look at each of these three areas, deeper, wider, and further, and add one thing to each one of those three. Okay, so what are you doing to go deeper? What's one additional thing that you could do? What else could you do to go wider? What else could you do to go further? And if you haven't got time to add three things to your busy life, which I totally get, then choose the one that you think that you're the weakest in at the moment, and look at that as a way that you're going to scan further in that area. Okay, great. Okay, so I'm going to give that, we'll stop for questions as we go. So let me do a couple more things here in the scan area, and then I'll stop and answer your questions. Okay, so thank you very much for participating in that and playing along. Just doing that exercise and seeing what other people are doing, I hope will give you some inspiration and ideas for yourself. Let me look at a question that people sent. One of the questions, this is from Sharon. I won't go any further in identifying the people who asked the questions. But this is Sharon's question about trusting the informations and the interactions we have when we're scanning, especially when there's so much AI-generated content. It's actually not Sharon's question exactly. Sharon, this is part of her question, and her question was actually about the share area. So I've kind of hijacked her question to fit it into scan. So apologies, Sharon, but we will get to the share part later. So I reckon there's some people who are concerned about this or questioning this. So let me ask you, is this a question that you are also concerned about? Let me see if I can bring that up. So just type in the chat yes or no. Like, we've got more AI generated content. Is it a concern for you? And look, you might say no, it's not, because I know how to manage it. I know how to do it. But it's for the people who are going yes, there's some people who are going no. But yeah, like I think this is it's a real concern that people are saying, we don't know what's happening with AI, and we know there's a lot more AI generated content out there. Can I just ask, given that there are about 5% of people in the room who say no, it's not an issue for them, can I just ask if you can just type in the chat, what are you doing to make sure that this is not an issue for you? What are you doing? Sarah says triangulating information, which I think she's saying look at multiple sources. Vicky's saying I'm pretending it doesn't happen. Yeah, scientific approach, research, talk to actual people, go back to source evidence. And the thing I like about this is that all of these answers, most of the answers, are saying this is not about AI, it's an issue that we've always had, especially now because there's so much online information and you need to go back and verify, trust and verify everything. So just in case anyone doesn't know, did you know that not everything on the internet is true? Okay, so just let that sink in, right? In case you didn't know that, and if it's come as a blast out of the blue for you, it's true that we've had to do this for a long time. Let me ask you a question here. If I'm going to ask you, what do these 5 places have in common? Okay, so what do these 5 places have in common? It's well known. It's well known. It's the letter A. It's more about where they are and the actual communities there. Long-lived populations. Yeah, that's right. So Tanya was the first person to get that. So these are what are known as the blue zones. Okay, so the blue zones are these areas that researchers went into, and they said they looked at these because they seem to have people who live longer than normal, and they looked at the reasons behind that, and they came up with a number of things. The biggest one was that probably made the biggest headlines was these communities had more social connections. So people were tight-knit, they were close, not just family but friends, and they spent a lot of time together, and people actually have built businesses and written books about this and built their whole expertise around this idea that, you know, if you want to live for a long time, build these social connections and get off your devices, hang out with people. And then more recently, there's been some other research that said this research was actually wrong. So a second group of researchers came in and said, this sounds good, but actually the research was flawed. And they looked at Okinawa as an example. And the first group of researchers said Okinawa is fantastic because they have a diet of sweet potatoes, and they have, as I said, they're very family oriented, and they build this social cohesion or connection. But the second group of researchers said what the first group didn't say was that, and Freya's actually right, and they keep poor birth records. That was actually the biggest thing. So they said that there were people who were 95 and they looked really young, but the reason they were 95 and looked young was because they were kind of cheating the government, because their parent who was 95 was earning a pension, but the dad died, and then the son pretended to be the dad so they could keep earning the pension, and they were actually 65, right? So that was the other thing that they found was a flaw. And they said things like, in Okinawa, they have a higher child poverty rate than the rest of Japan. They have a higher murder rate than the rest of Japan, and they eat more KFC than other regions. So these first researchers had conveniently overlooked those in order to highlight these things that are the positive sides of it. So that they debunked that research. And then very recently, there's been some other research that was done just in the last few months. A third group of researchers looked at the second group and said the second group was wrong, the first group was right all along. And they said, the thing about faking birth records and keeping poor birth records and faking ages and stuff, gerontologists know this. The first group of researchers took that into account, and they did all the sort of stuff that real scientists should do to be able to validate, to be able to provide valid research. So who's right? Who's wrong? Who do you believe? Well, you believe the consensus that's out there right now, okay? And this is the way the science works, that there's a hypothesis, it seems to be valid in the world, and then something breaks that hypothesis, and then you need to readjust and you need to change it. So this got nothing to do with AI, and I deliberately chose an example that's got nothing to do with AI because the whole point is that we need to validate everything that we're scanning. Okay, and if it's a really important decision, we need to validate it even more. For little minor decisions, it may not be as important, but especially if you're making decisions that are going to affect people's lives and livelihoods, then you need to evaluate it more. Yeah, and so the thing around AI, I did see a comment earlier saying it's easy to pick AI because some of it's really, and this is comments here, still I can bring it up. There are issues in photos and videos, and the writing still looks unnatural, but it's becoming better and better and better. So there's this term called AI slop, which is AI generated content on the internet. And I think that's a bit offensive to AIs. It's actually human slop. It's humans being sloppy about taking AI material and then just publishing it. Right? So that's where the slop comes from. So AI is getting better and better, and it'll be harder to detect AI. And all the automatic detection systems just don't work. They just don't. ChatGPT, OpenAI brought one out within the first year of when they created ChatGPT to be able to take any content, paste it in, and it would detect whether it was written by AI or not. It was so bad that in both ways, it detected the wrong things and it couldn't detect the correct things that it should have, that they got rid of it and they don't have it anymore. So it is still going back to trusted sources. Okay, before I do questions, let me do another little activity for us to do. And this one is a group activity, and I need to explain the instructions to you really carefully before we do this. Okay, so let me show you that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some numbers. I'm going to give you 3 numbers, which are the first 3 numbers of a sequence. And as a group, you're going to figure out what the sequence is. Okay, so by the way, anyone who's done any maths, if you've done the high-level maths, you know that any sequence of numbers, any random sequence of numbers, you can find a mathematical equation to fit that if you've done that sort of stuff. But this is nothing like that. You could have done this in primary school, all right? So it's not a fancy sequence. But okay, let me show this to you, and we'll go through the instructions really carefully. Okay, so don't type. I'm going to ask you to type in the chat, but not just yet. Let me make sure my thing's working. Good, it is. All right. So I'm going to give you the numbers, and when I do, what I want you to do in the chat is type in another number, and I will tell you whether it's in the sequence or not. So we're going to have these 2 lists here. One is going to be the numbers that are in the sequence and one that aren't, and some that aren't. Okay, so again, please don't type just yet. So even though Vicky says I hate maths, this is not very difficult maths, Vicky, I promise you. So let me tell you the first 3 numbers in the sequence, which I'm going to give you. 4, 8, 16. Okay, and then there's a whole bunch of other numbers in the sequence. So even if you think you know or you want to guess, don't guess what the sequence is just yet. I'm going to give you the chance to do that, to see who the smarty pants, but don't do that just yet. So the way we're going to do this is I'm going to ask you to give me a number, and I will tell you whether it's in the sequence or not. So for example, let me give you a couple of freebies. I will tell you that 64 is in the sequence. I will tell you that 10 is not. 256 is in the sequence. Okay, now I'll leave it to you. So before we do that, let me just bring this up so we can see the responses. So and I think the way the system's set up, you'll only be able to do 1 response. Only 1 will count. So please do that now. 131072. Okay, so 128 is in the sequence. Yes. 131072. I'm guessing is in the sequence. 64 I've already said is in the sequence. Any others? Anyone who want to guess a number that's not in the sequence? There's no penalty for guessing numbers that are not, but you might want to test. So 9 is correctly not in the sequence. 3 is not in the sequence. 1 is not in the sequence. 5 is not in the sequence. Okay, let me get. I think people are kind of coming to something. Okay, I can see 77. 77 is in the sequence. I can see a 29. 29 is in the sequence. 57 is in the sequence. I think some people are changing what they had in their mind. 65 is in the sequence. All right. Okay, I think we've done enough. 512, I saw 1024 come through. So 1024 is in the sequence. And I can see that Gihan has said 2047, 2047 and 2048 are in the sequence. Okay, that's enough because I'm running out of space here. So, okay, so now's your chance to type in the chat what you think the sequence is. Interesting, huh? So Ineke says, I hope I pronounced that correctly. Ineke says it's doubling or starting now. Sorry, Crystal and others have said this. It's starting and there's doubling. But you find that it's not the case, right? There's some numbers in there that obviously aren't doubles. And Dina says that. Okay. Any other guesses? As I said, this is really simple sequence, right? You could do this in primary school. Whatever Gihan thinks is in art. No, it's not. I've got a sequence in mind. It's not the Fibonacci sequence. Okay, I'll give you the answer. The sequence is the numbers are increasing. Yeah. Okay, so Michelle just said that. It's adding in numerical order. Yeah, so the sequence is any set of numbers where the numbers are increasing. Okay, so as simple as that. I said you could do it in primary school, and you can, right? And that's it. So the reason I'm sharing this with you is because you saw when people were sharing their answers and their guesses, most people were guessing numbers that they thought were in the sequence. But once you get a number like, I gave you the first two, but 128 is in the sequence, yeah, they're kind of useful, but not as useful as trying to guess things that are wrong. Because they're like looking at numbers that are wrong are actually, that's a useful thing because that will help you eliminate. So if somebody had said 77 very early on, and I said, oh, that's not in the sequence, it is in the sequence, then you go, that whole doubling thing, might as well forget about it from now because that's definitely wrong. Okay, so part of being able to validate something is to guess things that, like you've got an idea in your head, it's doubling, and instead of guessing numbers that double, what you should be doing is testing something outside what your guess is, because that will immediately mean that you change your hypothesis. If you keep doing doubling numbers forever, you will continue going down that wrong track. Okay, and it's really important that you look for disconfirming evidence as well. So that's one of the things that I do. I look for reasons why something is wrong, rather not only things that are right or that I'd like to be right. Okay, and this is really important when you're looking at, when you're scanning for material in the world. We tend to look for the things that will confirm what we already believe or we'd like to believe. This is confirmation bias, right? I'll give you a... Oh, sorry, just in terms of your question. Yeah, 5, 9, and 10 are all less than 16, because that's right, because I said the first three numbers are 4, 8, and 16, so you can't have 5, 9, or 10 after them. Okay, so yes, so it's really important because when we're looking at information, we should be looking at things that are not already validating our worldview. Another example of this, I've got one of the things I decided to do about 3 years ago. I thought there's so much bad stuff happening in the world. Let me add a little bit of positivity. So I have on my website, there's a thing called Better World. And if you follow me on Instagram or Blue Sky, you can get this every day. I post a story about something that's made the world better. It's usually about some research or some innovation or some government regulation somewhere around the world. And it's every day. And I've been doing that every day for the last 3 years. So there's more than 1,000 things there already now, and I'll keep doing that. And partly because it's research that I'm doing anyway, and I figure I might as well share it when I find good news stories. So the sort of things, let me show you a few of the things that have come up in the last month. So there's something done in University of New South Wales about using video games to manage pain. There's something that came out again a few weeks ago by the Chinese government regulating AI to protect their citizens from harm, from things like self-harm, gambling, violence, and so on. There's another one here about using wearables, young people wearing wearables, which will actually help improve their health. And this, I just post this every day, and a new thing every day. I don't really look at the stats except occasionally. You know, the most popular thing that's come out that have been posted in the last year, I look at the stats very, very occasionally, is this story here that said eating cheese is good for you. It helps you live longer, right? And like, when I post these, if I look back at the stats, some of them get 0 shares or likes. They may not even got noticed. This cheese one got 17, right? Which is way more than I would normally get on a post. Why? Because people like to know that eating cheese is good for you. Right? They have that confirmation, so they like it, they share it. Some people reposted it because they want to share stuff that validates what they already believe. Just make sure that's fine. No, I'm not criticizing anyone for doing that, but just make sure when you're doing your scanning that you're also looking for things, actively looking for things that will possibly contradict what you already believe, your worldview. Okay, we've all got this built-in confirmation bias. Okay, so there's a comment which I'll come to later, but let me just stop now and just see if there are any questions about this whole idea of scanning. Anything that you want to learn about or you want me to help you with when you're thinking about looking at the outside world. Confirmation bias, yeah. Dina, as a chronic overthinker, because she says bias first, he or she, and then says, I want to embroider this on a pillow. Yeah, good. Yeah, and again, Ian Way says, I seem to recall similar findings with chocolate and wine, funnily enough. Absolutely, right? So anything that I see about dark chocolate's good for you or red wine's good for you, that definitely goes into one of those daily posts because it validates my belief. Okay. All right, any questions? And the question about framing is one that we'll talk about very soon, actually. And the question itself, or the way we interpret it, can set the scene, absolutely. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on to this second area, because actually this is the one that had the most responses when I asked people what you're interested in. It's about sharing information. So how do you be more influential? And I'm going to give you a couple of examples from what people shared, and I'll give you some ideas around this as well. So the first one, this is from Zoe, and again, I won't go into too much of the details, but this is the core of the question. I develop proposals for our team, and there's a disconnect between what they should be focusing on, the activities we should be supporting, and what that exec team actually thinks we should be focusing on. So let me make up a organization. Let's say the exec team reports to a board. The board has given the team, the organization, some priorities, and then the team's supposed to do that, but the exec team thinks there's some other there's things that we like. So Zoe's in the position of writing proposals to get approval, but the exec team seems to go for the wrong things, okay, and approve the wrong things and prioritize the wrong things. So Zoe says, how can I be more influential in that situation, in that scenario? So it's a kind of real life scenario, even though I've made up the organization that Zoe's in. But it's a real life scenario, right? Like, how do you influence up? So let's tap into the intelligence of the group that's here. Would you like to share an idea for Zoe? Okay, and just type in the chat, a simple thing. And Zoe, so your role is to make note of the ideas as they come through. But what does anyone have as advice for Zoe in this situation where she's trying to influence up, knowing that what she's doing is actually what the organization should be doing, but there's a layer of management that's kind of getting in the way. Let me share some of these as they come up. Executive perspective, validate within evidence, provide information about the why. Yeah, create a score sheet that demonstrates the alignment. Make sure that everything you're doing is data-led. Understanding their priorities. Similarly, like provide a benefit for the organization they understand. In case I know the organization you might be talking about. Understand their drivers. Okay, align the proposal with values. And again, there was another one about strategy. Right, they need a light bulb moment, like something that actually, like something that really changes their mind and disrupts their previous way of working. Have a diffusion model, innovators versus laggards, yeah, okay. And if they're innovators, yeah. Seek out a champion. These are all fantastic ideas. Fantastic ideas. Thank you so much. And thanks so much for helping Zoe as well, because I thank Zoe for contributing a question in advance. It helped me prepare, and I'm really grateful for that. And Zoe, I hope you've got some value for this as well. And again, for Zoe specifically, I'll take these and send them, this part of the chat, and send them through to her, so she has a list. Okay, so another thing that I reckon we should do, and I didn't ask the question for this, so nobody put this in the chat because I didn't ask the question that way, is this is exactly the sort of thing that I reckon we should be using AI for. Okay, so if you're in a position like this where you've got a workplace challenge, I reckon you should be saying something like, my challenge is this, and paste in pretty much what I had on that earlier slide, and then say, give me 20 ideas to help me achieve this goal. And ChatGPT or Gemini or Copilot, whatever you're using, will come up with a list of 20 ideas. And then you use your human intelligence to look through them and go, no, that's not going to work. That wouldn't work. Tried that once before. But you might find two or three or four of them that will work for you. Okay, then I would also recommend, and this is what I do when I coach clients around using AI effectively in their workplace, I would have a second prompt that says, now give me another 20, this time make them really wild, crazy, out there, even career limiting moves that I could do to try and push my way through and have that influence. And again, obviously, this is again where you use your human intelligence, but you're asking ChatGPT to stretch your thinking for you, and you might get some really wild and crazy idea that you would never do in that dynamic, but it might inspire something that you go, oh, I could do a little smaller variation of this that would work. Okay, this is a really good use of AI in a professional workplace, and I reckon we should be doing more of this. So I tell all my clients to do this. I'm telling you now, this is exactly the sort of thing that you would ask ChatGPT for help with. Okay, it doesn't mean you shouldn't ask the room. There's some fantastic ideas here. Doesn't mean you shouldn't engage a futurist to come in and help you with this around building a culture of change and having influence and in sense making. Absolutely, please do that. But also make sure that you're using the tools that you've already got. Here's another one. I'll give you a second one here. This is one from Anne-Marie. And again, she said, I can share this. So she said, I'd like to influence my team. So Anne-Marie is the again, I kind of make up the organization for just for anonymity and privacy. So she's a senior leader of an organization. She's got a team, and they're going through some pretty big change at the moment. And the team seems to be thinking about all the problems that are going to happen as a result of going through this change process. So she says, I'd like to influence my team to focus on the positive change and benefits. Okay, I'm going to give you 30 seconds. Please chat in the chat and type in some suggestions for Anne-Marie. So she's already got positional authority. So this is influencing down rather than influencing up. Appreciative inquiry from Vicky. Okay, the reason I'm not giving you a huge amount of time in this, absolutely ask ChatGPT. Quick learner, Lizanne, thank you. The reason I'm not giving a lot of time in this is because Anne-Marie provided some more context to this. And she said, in addition to what she just said there, which is all true, she said, I'm close to retirement and might not be around for the implementation. Okay, and that kind of changes everything. Because she's trying to get her team to go focus on the benefits, focus on the positives. So given that you know both parts of this, how would you now advise Anne-Marie to have that influence with her team? So she can't just rely on her positional authority alone, even though that has some sway. What else can she do? Susan, find a successor. Can you expand on that? Like, are you saying ask the successor to take on that role? Could be. Succession. Yeah, succession planning. Good. Yep. Good. Okay, so that's good. So you're finding a champion within your team. Involve the team in the change. Yeah. So the reason I'm really grateful to Anne-Marie for this, because it actually supports the point that I want to make. And Anne-Marie didn't know this when she sent through the question. The reason I'm sharing this is whenever you're trying to influence other people, they want to know what your authority is to share that information or for the message that you've got. But also, there are certain times when they go, that's easy for you to say. Okay, and you have to be aware when they're looking at you as a messenger, not only the benefits that you've got and the authority you've got and the experience and the expertise and the education, they also are looking at the reasons that they shouldn't trust you. Okay, so in Anne-Marie's case, she can say everything about, here's the process, it's going to be great for you, there's going to be some difficult times, but we can push through it. And it's very easy for the team to go, well, that's easy for you to say, you won't be around to see all the struggles that we're going through. Okay, so my real exercise for you here is to think about what about you when you're delivering a message, is it easy for people to discard the message by going, that's easy for you to say. So for example, I'll give you some personal examples. So if I'm a man, which I am, and I'm training women in how to be more assertive and be in leadership positions, and I say, look, if you've got an idea, make sure you speak up at a meeting. And I can completely understand a woman going, that's easy for you to say, like you've never been in the position where I come up with an idea and it gets ignored, and then a man says it 10 minutes later and he gets all the glory for it. Or I could say, you need to make sure that when you are to be influential, make sure you speak up and even be emotional. And it's easy for a woman to go, that's easy for you to say, because when men speak up, they're called assertive. When women speak up, they're called bossy, right? So there are these things that you've got, and this is part of your privilege, whether you've earned it or not, that will get in the way. So what's your feature about you as a messenger that makes it easy for other people to go, that's easy for you to say, because you've got this? All right, what is it? I'm just asking you to share, and it's a bit of a personal question, but it's not a difficult question to answer. It's just like, just be aware of that, right? My role, Freya says, is it because you're senior, Freya? And so it's easy, like you've got that influence and the people that you're sharing the message with don't? Could be. Age is another one, Rob says. So again, if I'm talking to young people, my stepkids or my nieces and nephew, and I go, look, it's really important to work really hard and go over and above, because that's the way that you build your career and you eventually be happy and successful. And I can go, well, that's easy for you to say. You're a Gen X, you own the biggest proportion of wealth in Australia, you bought a house, you own a house, and it's like you've got the keys to the castle, but you've pulled up the drawbridge behind us, so it's easy for you to say, but it's not so easy for us to do, right? Okay, again, like whether you believe that or not, or whether you go, oh, actually, I empathize with you, it is something that you need to be careful of, okay? Because it's easy, especially when you're sharing a challenging message, for people to look for reasons why they can say the message is wrong or say the answer is not true. Reputation. So yeah, and so you're saying you're kind of chatty and social, you're extroverted. It's easy to say go and have connections with people and put down your devices. Doesn't come naturally to everyone. Sally, yes, your experiences. Okay, and again, it's an experience that the people receiving the message know about and can use it to white ant your message, or to completely ignore your message, because they go, it's easy for you to say, so I don't need to worry about it. So again, I'm looking for obstacles here, Kathy, so I'm not sure when you say storytelling, are you saying storytelling is a way around that? Absolutely, I agree with that. But what's the reason that they would not, or they'd reject your message or diminish your message because of something about you? Absolutely lack of trust in you, right? And it might simply be because of your position, because of your positional authority. They don't trust the person who's in that position. It might be because of somebody who they dealt with, your predecessor, or for whatever reason. It's got nothing to do with you, but it's got to do with your job title. And so just be aware that you need to be able to overcome that and find a way around that. If you don't have the right qualifications, okay, there's some people who look at, if you don't have a uni degree, regardless of the years of experience that you have, they go, well, if you don't have a uni degree and I do, anything you say isn't as valuable as anything that I believe. And the messages I'm going to get are only from people with those right qualifications. Okay, so I just want to give you one example of when you're looking at influence in this whole process of scan. We get to shift, scan, shift, and share. In the share area, when you're looking at influence, be aware that the messenger counts, right? If you're the messenger, you bring that to the message that people are getting, and just be aware of that. So there's a lot more to this, of course, but this is one of the most useful takeaway things that you can put into place right now to go, what have I got because of my privilege? So for me, I'm a man, I'm cis, straight, I'm a Gen X, I have a whole bunch of other things, or because of something that you've earned that puts you in a position that is easy for people to reject your message because of that position. Okay, so identify some things and look at what you're going to do to overcome that objection. We won't go into the overcoming objection thing. I just want to make you aware of it here. I reckon one other thing we need to be really good at in terms of influence is being really good at dealing with data, because we're going to get more and more data now. And if you look at the AI is basically AI is digital data. When you've got digital data, AI goes to work on that. It consumes that and it works on that. But even if you forget about the AI part of it, if you're looking at data in general, we need to be good with data. It doesn't mean you need to be able to do maths in your head, but it means that any data that you get that you want to share, you've got to be able to deliver it in a way that tells people that people understand it. Even people who are good with numbers, if you share numbers with them, it's easy for them to not grasp the value of the numbers. Let me give an example. And this is actually in Broome, this is the staircase to the moon. A beautiful thing, and full moons in Broome, and I've been to Broome a number of times in Western Australia. And the last time I went to speak at a conference, it happened to coincide with the full moon. So I saw this staircase to the moon. I'm sure some people here would have experienced this as well. So this is the moon up in the sky, and what the staircase is actually not really a staircase, it's just a reflection in the water, and because it's because the waves, it looks like individual steps creating this reflection. And it's only in this case because of the perspective that it looks like a vertical staircase, when in fact, of course, it's like horizontally the waves are leading out and the moon's right up in the sky. And the reason I'm sharing this is I reckon whenever you're talking about data, your job is to give people a perspective on the data you're sharing. The raw data itself is in one case maybe confusing, but also unless you give them a perspective, an angle on the data that you want them to focus on, it's really difficult for them to understand your point. They just see a number, 32, 64, and it doesn't mean anything unless you give it perspective. Let's do a quick poll here. Because this whole idea of data literacy is one of the most important skills that we need for the future. AI literacy as well, but also, leaving aside AI, data literacy. So let's do this quick poll. This is some research that was done by PwC last year. And this is how many employees, what percentage of employees, so this is not about data literacy, what percentage of employees say they learned new skills at work in 2025. Okay, and so I'd like you to type in A, B, C, or D, based on 20%, 40%, 60%, 80%. Okay, just type in the letters, don't type in the number. And okay, good. So people have done it already. So 60% is leading. Follow closely. Oh, this 60% taking a strong lead. Good, good, good. Okay, so let me share the answer. So the correct answer is 60%, correct? It's actually 56%. And the first person to get that right was, congratulations, Anne, for doing that. Great. Okay, so I did that for two reasons. So one is I do want to make the point that learning new skills is really important, and lots of employees are saying, our boss didn't provide the skills, our organization didn't provide the skills we needed. So 56% is pretty low, right? The other reason I'm sharing that is I could have just shown you this slide without going through the poll, without getting you to think of what it might be. So engaging people in data before you share it is also useful. Jamie Oliver, when he did his TED Talk a number of years ago now, so he put data in perspective by saying the next 18 minutes of my TED Talk, 4 Americans are going to die because of the food that they eat. Okay, putting that point in perspective. Here's one that I share sometimes. So people ask me, what's going to happen to the world and what's the world going to look like geopolitically? And I go, look, that's not my area of futurism. But I will point out Ray Dalio is a futurist who talks about this. And he says throughout history, empires typically last about 250 years. And I point out that the United States of America right now is 249 years old. Okay, now this is not scientific evidence, but people go, oh, that's kind of interesting, right? And so it's again putting what's happening in our world into historical perspective. And I don't present this as science, but it's an interesting observation. Hannah Fry, who talks about, and she's written a book about AI and humans, she talks about data a lot in her book. And remember, data doesn't only have to be about numbers. So in the book, she relates how she's talking to the software developers behind, if you've got a rewards card, Woolies rewards card, or Flybuys, all that data, and what your shopping habits say about what you're likely to buy in the future, what sort of person you are. And she said this: the product in your shopping cart that most indicates that you're a certain kind of person is fresh fennel. If you buy this, you're more than likely to be this kind of person. And it's kind of a surprising piece of data. It's much more useful and much more engaging than just providing a whole bunch of stats in there, right? So I hope people are intrigued by that, right? Go out and buy her book and find out why, find out more about it. That's the whole point. It's not trying to give you all the information, it's trying to engage you in it. And here's another one. I'm going to give you this list of 10 countries, and I'm going to ask you what these countries have in common. North Korea, Eritrea, in Africa, Turkmenistan, Asia, China, Iran, Afghanistan, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE, and Australia. What do these countries have in common? Please type in the chat. Bit tricky, huh? Or playing the Asian Cup. I think some of them don't, do they? An army, hot weather. Something to do with demographics. It is something to do with slightly demographics. All have an A in their name. They're not in the Western Hemisphere. Yeah, I'd say so, even though we count ourselves as a Western country. It's not in the Western Hemisphere. Okay, let me give you the answer. They all ban social media for under 16s. Okay, so now, I don't know, are you surprised by that? Did you know that? And you see our government proudly saying we're the first country to do this. Well, actually not. We're not. So we have joined North Korea and China and Iran and Afghanistan and Qatar and the UAE and now the lucky country. Now, some of them ban social media altogether, but some of them also have age-related bans. And the reason I'm sharing this is because I'm sharing something which again gives you a different perspective on this whole idea of social media ban for under 16s. Now, if you want to come along to my TED Talk about how we're dumbing down Australia by banning social media for under 16s, please do. So this is not about that. It's not about this content, but it's about how you present data in an engaging way. Okay, so any questions about this whole idea of influence and sharing? I'll give you a little bit of time for questions. And as I said, we'll do the third area, but we won't spend much time in that. I wanted to focus on the first two areas, and then we'll look at the shift area. Any questions? Okay, let's look at this last area, and this is like what shift are you going to make after you've done the scanning and you need to share stuff. And this is, as I said, like how you get insights, and it's about learning, it's about having a culture of change, it's about adaptability, it's about flexibility, all of those sort of things. Alvin Toffler, who was a futurist before that word even existed, said that the literate of the 21st century are those of us who can't learn, unlearn and relearn. So how do you do that? Like, how do you actually find and make the time to make learning happen? So I'm going to share with you, there's a lot of things we could go into this area. I'm going to share with you one principle that will help you take the ideas you've got from here and put them into action. And it's around habit. Habit trumps discipline every time. So the things that you do are habitual. So let me ask a personal question. I won't do a poll on this. Did you brush your teeth this morning? I reckon yes. I reckon if I did a poll, 100%. Like we do that, right? Doesn't matter how busy we are. Doesn't matter what else we've got in our lives. We brush our teeth in the morning and then before we go to bed at night. When you get into a car, you automatically put a seatbelt on. Those are good habits. There may be some bad habits like social media scrolling, doom scrolling. So those are the habits that we still do automatically and we need to be able to break them. In fact, I'm going to share with you a particular little app here. around breaking a bad habit. So just like everybody else, I tend to spend too much time doom scrolling and just wasting time on social media. Some of it I can justify to myself. LinkedIn's my professional network, I need to do that. Instagram's really useful because I do those better world things. I'm on YouTube because I want to use it as learning. If I want to use the old people's social network, then I'll go to Facebook from time to time. And I can always justify it, but sometimes it's just me reaching for my phone because it's a habit whenever I'm taking a break or standing in line waiting for my coffee. So if you don't want to do those and what you want to do is replace them with something more positive, there's a really good app called OneSec. Can I just check, in fact, how many people are using OneSec? Can I just ask, yes or no? Are you using this? Do you know about it? And actually, let me ask, are you using it? Yeah, okay, most people aren't. So let me show you how OneSec works and how it works effectively to break habits. In this case, it's a bad habit, and they've designed it specifically that if you're on social media, so you install the OneSec app. It's available on Apple, iOS, and Android. It's free for one network, and then you pay a little bit, like $2 a month or something, to get access to unlimited use. So what it does is, so I set it up first for Facebook. And so every time I open, let's say Instagram, it, instead of opening Instagram, it comes up with a little screen and this purple thing that goes up the page. It says, take a deep breath, comes down again and says you've made 7 attempts to use Instagram. And then there are buttons which are grayed out at first. And then after a couple of seconds, it says, the big button is I don't want to open it. But there's another button that says I continue to. And it takes about, I reckon, 5, 6, 7 seconds before I can actually open Instagram. So that's a little habit breaker, because it means that if I pick up my phone and want to go to Instagram, I've got to wait 7 seconds. There are other things there's apps called Brick that'll turn your phone into a brick so that you can't use it for an hour or so, and there's nothing you can do to get out of that. I like this one because it's a simple thing and it's enough to go, actually I won't go to Instagram. What I'll do is, if I've got a couple of minutes that I'm waiting for my coffee, remember there's only 7 seconds, 6 or 7 seconds, instead of going to Instagram, which there's a barrier for me to opening that, I'll go to my list of blog posts and articles that I've saved, because it's much more important for me to know and to share with you about Google AI tools and what Ricky Ponting say about cricket and AI in the economy and so on. And there's 1,040 articles I could go and read. And just that little barrier that you put in place to a habit that you want to break is useful. So if you want to get OneSec, then you can go, it's available on, as I said, Apple and Android. The free version allows you to block one social media, and then I used it for a bit and I thought this is really useful. Let me get the unlimited version, and as I said, it's only a couple of bucks a month, and then I can choose which ones I want to block. Okay, so I've left LinkedIn unblocked because that's one that I feel I still justify to myself that it's worth me being on LinkedIn. Okay, so I've left that unblocked, but the others I've kind of put this block on there, which just slows me down from doing this automatic habit. Okay, so timing's perfect. So just before I finish up, I want to check. We've talked about these 3 things. Remember, we talked about gathering intel from the world. We talked about being a person of influence, being able to influence others. And then in terms of insights, we didn't go into much detail, but I wanted to give value to the other 2 because people specifically asked about that. But that habit breaking thing is really useful. And whether you use OneSec or you've got some other way to cultivate good habits or break bad habits, do that. Do that, because we live our lives by the habits that we do. And however good our willpower is, however good our discipline is, however strong the KPIs, our motivators and carrots and sticks are, nothing beats habits. Habits beat discipline every time. Okay, so make sure you do that. Okay, before I finish up, again, the Future Ready Skills ebook, it's free, it's available to everybody. I'll put the link in the chat again in case it's all scrolled past for you now. And I'll send you out, when I send out the recording, I'll make sure I have that link for you there as well. Thanks everybody for coming along. Thank you for participating, especially taking part in the puzzles and helping other people in the room as well. I hope you got value from this. My last message, as always, is don't wait until things are perfect. Don't wait until you've got time. Start before you're ready. So I said at the start, I would love you to have some things that you can put into place 3 minutes from now, not 3 weeks or 3 months. So my last question for you is, do you have that? So I'm going to ask you, have you found something that you can put into place, let's say today? Just say yes or no. Remember, this is motivation not just for yourself, but for everyone else in the room as well. Thank you for the applauses and thanks and so on. Great. Great. Okay. So, my last question for you is, are you actually going to do it? Okay. And I hope you do. The thing that you've decided is worth doing right now, today, please do it. Start before you're ready. And that's the best way to be fit for the future. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. And I'll see you in the future. Bye for now.